Ferrari could fly? And what if it was built in the US? Let's find out on Built for Flight. Hi, I'm Matt Hutton.
Nice to meet you, Matt Hutton. I'm Judd Kudelka.
So what do you do at GAME?
Currently what we do is we manufacture the GB1 aircraft, an aerobatic airplane, and then we're moving into the GB2 aircraft that'll be a firefighting aircraft.
Well, can we take a tour and show me everything you do here?
Absolutely.
I was so excited to see the manufacturing facility. Judd had his start in composites, where the aircraft creation begins.
The way we kind of specialize or signify our molds is we have these black molds that you can see on the left and right of us. Those are for our GB2 aircraft. And then we have our green molds here, that's for our GB1 aircraft, or Gamebird 1. Now, Gamebird 1 is a fully aerobatic aircraft. GB2 is going to move into the firefighting market, and you can see the size of it.
I couldn't believe the size of the GB2 molds. This one Judd is showing me is just the cockpit.
Now, here in our composite shop, we lay up our aircraft with carbon fiber. And the process that we use is a wet layup process. So we have rolls of carbon fiber that live here on this stand that you'll see as we're coming up to it. And then what will happen is it'll go through our laminator, it will dose with resin and hardener, and then the technicians will cut those items, the fabric off the table, and lay them into the molds.
GAME Aerospace is an airplane manufacturer that has quickly made a name for themselves in the aerobatic community. Their first airframe, the GB1, is a tandem two-seat with an optional one-seat canopy that is an incredible sports car in the sky.
Whether thrilling audiences at an air show or just having a ton of fun in the sky, the Gamebird 1 is a versatile aerobatic performer. And now, the company is expanding to design, develop, and manufacture an incredible tanker aircraft called the Gamebird 2.
Over in this part of the composite shop, we keep our molds. And so we can see by the green in color, we've got our GB1 molds. We've got a few things like our windshield and our cowling and one of the seat supports.
So how does that work? Do you just pour stuff in the mold?
No, not quite like that. So what we have is our laminator table that will print out the fabric. The technicians will cut that fabric and then lay it into the mold. Okay. And then we'll take it, vacuum bag it, and take it into the oven and bake it.
So how long does that curing process last?
Takes about 8 hours. And then over here we have some of our very first GB2 flight controls. So that's that firefighting aircraft that we were talking about. We've got a rudder there on the table, a stabilizer, and one of the elevators.
Oh, wow. So after those composite parts are built, what's the next step in the process?
Yeah, after the composite parts are built, we'll start assembling the assemblies, for example. That will be anything from the fuselage or the wings, whether that's bonding ribs into the wings or our seat supports and side consoles into the fuselage, and then there comes your airplane. After that step, we'll assemble the whole airplane and roll it into our oven for a step we call the post-cure process. And what that is an elevated temperature cure to give the plane the strength it needs before it leaves the factory. After that, the technicians will disassemble the airplane and move it over into our body area. We'll pull these curtains back, but welcome to the body area. What happens in this process is the aircraft will leave the composite shop. It'll come directly over here into the body area, and then the technicians will do some light finish work on the airplane before it's delivered over to paint. You can see over here on this rack, we mainly have the racks to keep all the parts segregated, so we know that this is for aircraft serial number 110. So everything that lives on this rack and everything in this room is for aircraft serial number 110.
And 110 will be the next airplane to come out of the factory?
The 110 will be the third one to come out of the factory. Currently we'll be delivering number 108, and then we have 109 that's in the paint area, and this will be serial number 110.
After the body area, the airplanes are moved to paint.
And then over here on this side, you can see a newly painted airplane we just finished up about a day and a half ago from paint. So technicians are going through and buffing out the fuselage, making sure everything looks good before we deliver it over to the assembly area.
So is that airplane going to Peru?
It is going to Peru. They'll have a demonstration team that they will use this aircraft for.
How many airplanes in the demonstration team?
They have 6.
Wow.
So when they finish with these last 4 airplanes, they'll have 6 total.
Okay. After the design, the paint scheme is put together, like this has got to be a multi-step paint process. How long does that take?
Yes, so our paint process takes about 10 days. So what we'll do is it'll go into the paint area. They'll do one last primer of the aircraft and do some block sanding. We want to make sure everything all the lines look really good on the aircraft, and then we'll start to paint. There is very little on the airplane that is vinyl. Usually it's only the end number on the airplane that's vinyl. Everything else is paint. So we'll take and lay our base layer and then whatever colors that stack up on top of that, and then ultimately the clear coat. Here we are in the metal fabrication shop. We have one of our big CNC machines that lives here.
Well, that's huge.
Yeah. What we do with this piece of machine is we machine the landing gear for the GB1 aircraft.
Okay.
So it's a lot of fun being able to watch all that process work through. We also, some of the other metal components on the GB1 aircraft is the engine mount and some of the camera mounts that we use for like mounting your GoPro camera as you're up there doing aerobatics, want to see kind of how you're performing. And then over here on this side, we have a fixture for placing the ribs in the GB2 wing. So what this will do is help us to create a process that's repeatable, and we'll be able to locate those ribs in the wing consistently and regularly as we're going through the manufacturing process.
So are those pieces bonded together or bolted together?
Yeah, so initially what they'll do is we'll place the ribs and the different pieces on this fixture, we'll bond them together, and then we'll rotate it into the wing skin and then bond them to the wing skin.
Okay.
This is our CNC router room. This room does a lot of different things for us. So what we see here is we have some pink foam here. We're getting ready to prepare to build some molds. This machine will cut those, and then it'll head over to our prototype area where they will lay up the molds. But also this machine is a workhorse for some of our GB1 or Gamebird 1 parts. It'll cut a lot of the trailing edge on the parts that we built, like on the flight controls. We want to make sure that's accurate and consistent. And then we'll also cut a few other items like the seat supports, or we have some items called quasi-plate that are basically real thick built up layers of carbon fiber that will build into some of the wing structure and into the ribs that we build up.
Okay, very good. So a question about this piece here, will you do like a final sanding of this or?
Yeah, so what this is we call this like our rough cut.
Okay.
And then the machine will come back, they'll build up like a second operation or a second program over there in the room, and then the machine will come back and do a lot of the finish cutting here. So the finish of this will be a lot more refined when it's taken off the table and moved over to the prototype area.
Okay. After the painting's done, what's the next phase in the construction of the aircraft?
Yep. So after that, the aircraft will come over here to the assembly area and we'll start to assemble the aircraft. We'll have a technician that'll start working on the engine, assembling the components on the engine. We have an avionics shop where they start building the wiring harness and where you can make some selections. Maybe you would like a dual comm system, or you would like a taxi camera or autopilot. We'll make sure and build the harness to how the customer has configured his airplane. And then after that, it'll come install the harness in the airplane. We'll start installing flight controls, and then we'll roll it out for its first engine run, come back in, make sure we fix any squawks that may be on the aircraft, and then it'll go out for its first flight.
So Judd, what is this board here?
Yeah, so here we are in the assembly area. This board is really critical to our process.
Yeah.
What we have is everything on this board. You can see it's two-sided, has all the parts we need to put one GB1 aircraft together. So in each one of these sections of these board is broken out into different stages. So we have, for example, you can see a lot of lines, fluid lines here. So this would deal a lot with the fuel system and the smoke oil system. Here in this stage, stage 30, you'll see a lot of different other different parts, and these are a lot of the flight controls, deals with a lot of the flight controls. Right. And the technicians, what they do is they work from this paperwork here on this side that's broken down into the different stages.
So there's like a build sheet of some sort?
Yep, a build sheet. If I could explain it just an easy way, it would be like a little construction sheet, like you were putting something together, like Legos or anything else together.
How many people and how many days does it take to do a GB1 assemble?
Yep. So when that plane is delivered over from paint, we have 5 technicians that'll work on it, and it'll take them about 10 days to get the plane built and ready for flight test. Now, as we continue to walk, we'll see over here, this is serial number 108 that we were talking about earlier. It is going to go out for flight test today.
It's another airplane going to Peru.
Yes, it is. This is part of their demonstration team.
Wow, beautiful airplane. After final assembly happens, I'm assuming somebody's going to test the airplane. Who does that, and what happens during that part of the process?
Yeah, so our CEO, Philip Steinbach, does all the first flights of the aircraft.
So you're telling me the CEO does the flying of these airplanes?
Absolutely,
Oh,
yep.
That's pretty impressive.
We wouldn't have it any other way. That first flight, Philip will go through his flight test. That'll be an hour. He'll go through and test all the systems, make sure everything is working right. He'll come back, let us know if there's any squawks that exist on it. We'll do a 1-hour oil change, and then we'll take the aircraft out and we'll do another 4 hours. And when we deliver the airplane to the customer, it's got a minimum of 5 hours, and we'll send it on its way.
I really appreciate the tour here today, and you have the most amazing, clean airplane factory I've ever seen. I've walked through a lot of them in my life, and I'm so excited to be here today.
Thank you, we appreciate it. That's definitely one of the things we love to hear and we pride ourselves in, is just having a clean, well-organized facility that helps us to produce a really great product.
It's one thing to hear from the company about their airplanes, but I wanted to see what other pilots thought. I caught up with Brian Prang with Tech Aero, who not only bought a GB1, but partners with Game Aerospace to provide the factory training for each new owner.
Every owner gets 10 hours of built-in instruction as part of the cost of the airplane, and our job is to make you feel comfortable in this airplane, not only in the flying aspects of it, but also the maintenance and care and feeding of it over time.
So I guess you expect the customer to already be tailwheel proficient when they come to you?
I expect some level of tailwheel interest before they buy an airplane like this, but they don't necessarily have to be expert tailwheel pilots. We will start with the pilot where they're at their skill set, and some are ready to almost fly away with the airplane, and we do paperwork and we help them with the maintenance of it. Others, this is an intimidating airplane, and we step back, we unlock that, and if you need some more fundamental practice, we'll even start with a cub, just a simple, honest cub, and get you to where you need to be, and then speed everything up in the game bird. As we were shopping for the airplane and going through the relationship, we deeply appreciate not only the proximity to our own location so we can go back and forth with customers, but this is a made in America airplane. It's what we consider a top-notch aircraft for all the reasons on the spec sheet, but beyond that, it's a true, honest airplane that it does more than just aerobatics. It's so much fun to fly.
I had been super impressed so far by the facility. I had to ask Brian what his initial thoughts were when he first walked in.
This facility is surgical. It is beautiful. And we've had a lot of experience in general aviation and different production facilities and different ways things are done. And when we went through the build process of our airplane, we designed our own paint scheme. We did all the ownership steps along the way, and Game was wildly responsive, super helpful. And when we get to the facility, you see how every aircraft is made and the painstaking detail that goes into something made in America. And through that, the entire delivery process was on a timeline that we were shocked. They promised it on a date, and they honestly delivered every step of the way. And within boutique manufacturing and aviation, that's not always the case. So that helps us when we're working with the customer experience and the entire delivery experience, because the customer is well prepared for their airplane, and we can coordinate all of our events behind the scenes so it's seamless for the customer.
I get a chance to have a talk with the founder, the designer, and the lead test pilot at Game Aerospace when we come back. Now it's time to go visit with the founder of the company and learn about the history that led up to the creation of Game Aerospace. I wanted to get to know Philip Steinbach a little bit better. Like most of us, his journey began as a small child looking up at the sky and progressed from models to RC aircraft to flying gliders by his early teens. By 16, he was working in an aircraft shop, which led to a job building extras and the next step in his piloting, powered flight.
Learned that having a throttle is kind of a cool thing. I worked for Extra for 2 years on the Extra 400 program, then Extra 200 program. In parallel, I started flying aerobatics when that was 2003 with an Extra 300S with a group of 4 other people in Germany. 2006, we started building the Extreme, which is today an XA42 or XA41, the single-seater. If you take race cars, you have a go-kart or you have a Formula One car that is really just made for one thing, or you can have a Porsche with automatic and an air condition. Trying to live off a business that only builds those one-trick ponies is pretty hard. So I had a lot of experience after living this, but nothing to show for really. And so the Gamebird is kind of the attempt to combine two worlds into one, to have unlimited aerobatic capability, but also be able to go places, just go for a fun ride and enjoy, have good visibility out of it, have range, have a nice cockpit layout, not something where you hurt yourself when you move too fast. Plus, this airplane is really designed to be producible. Most, call it European composite airplanes, would not be able to pass through an FAA production certificate process because they just heavily rely on tribal knowledge in the production process. And so everything here on the production side, right from the first line onwards, has been standardized that it can be produced.
Philip talked about the goal of the GB1. Many aerobatic airplanes can be difficult to fly. Philip wanted an aerobatic performer that put a big emphasis on user-friendliness.
They go cross-country pretty nice, so going places is as much fun as doing aerobatics. And then the handling qualities, or stall qualities in particular, the airplane, you probably noticed, doesn't have a stall warning. And the reason why we got through the FAA certification without stall warning is because of the benign handling qualities in the stall. So it gives you plenty of warning. You can fly the airplane out of every type of stall with minimal altitude loss, so you never actually lose control. And that's a big selling factor. You never become a passenger per se for more than, call it, 200 vertical feet. And that's a big, that was a big development goal for the airplane.
So why did you decide to start production of a GB2? It's a completely different platform than what you've done so far in life.
Yes, so the GB1 was the beginning of a business, and when Stuart and I founded the business in early 2013, the intent was that the Gamebird is the first product, but not the last product. Essentially, whether you build for the FAA, whether you build something like the Gamebird or a 747, doesn't make any difference in your production approval or in your ODA approval. You need to certify processes, you need to qualify the training of your people, you need to have a quality system in production, in inventory, in all of it.
An early Gamebird 1 customer introduced Philip into the firefighting and ag aviation industry. And after 2 years of talking about the current airplane models and the challenges they face, he began to dream up a clean sheet design on an aerial firefighting aircraft. The GB2 was born.
That, okay, this is not too big of a step for us. Like a firefighting airplane is essentially call it an oversized aerobatic airplane with an oversized smoke tank. But it is not a complex machine. The wheels stay down all the time, not pressurized, you only carry two people. The electrical system is kind of the same. Okay, it's a turbine, but that's not that much of a step. Right now we're hopefully about half year away from first flight and starting the flight test with this airplane. It's also pretty satisfying to work on something that is actually has a real purpose, if you will. It does something good for people, and that also helped motivating our team here. So when you make aerobatic airplanes, it's great, it's fun for a while, but it doesn't have the same magnitude of motivation to somebody compared to you're building something that fights fires. So now hiring has become easier, recruiting talent has become a lot easier.
Because of the GB2 project?
Because of the GB2 project. Yeah. What we're trying to do with the GB2 is essentially build something that can do 80% of what's out there today for less than 10% of the price. And I'm not talking about the single-engine air tankers that are out there, I'm talking about the larger tankers and scoopers. So we're looking into a pretty substantial market, and we're talking to as many people and as many clever people as we possibly can.
How are you going to deliver on a better airplane? Because you're talking about higher ferry speeds, a lot more capacity to carry water, bigger fuel tanks, all composite construction. Tell us about how you're making all that happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's all engineering, essentially. It's all just thinking, and as much money as you throw it in and as much brain that's directly related to the outcome. And so we're looking to build a below 6,000 pound empty weight airplane that has a max gross weight of 19,000 pounds, and do that with the same engine that another 60,000 pound airplane currently uses with better performance. So
you're going to still use the Dash 67 PT6?
The 67F, yeah.
Okay.
And that's just a stretch in engineering, essentially. So better aerodynamics, better structures, and better detail design, and just fast forward 40 years, essentially.
Well, somebody needs to do it because there are no new ag designs or single engine air tanker.
Exactly, and that doesn't mean what's out there today is bad. It just means, like with everything, the better is the enemy of the good. And
So I hear on the GB2 that you went with an oleo style gear.
That's right.
Why did you do that? Because any other airplane ever has been just a normal metal spring gear like you would see on a GB2.
Yes.
Or GB1, sorry.
So there's a lot of reasons for this. One is if the airplane is empty and you build a spring gear that is supposed to take the loads of a heavy airplane, and your landing weight is almost 3 times the amount of your empty weight, that landing gear is going to be horribly stiff when you land empty, and that means the forces on the airframe are going to be horrible. So your airframe's going to get beat up when you land, especially on AG strips. The next thing is one use case for this airplane will be fuel hauler in places like Indonesia or Alaska, to bring what kind of fuel, multi-fuel, car fuel, to remote communities. And that means you don't drop the load before landing. That would kind of defeat the purpose, right?
So you can land with 19,000 pounds in the airplane?
That's right.
Oh
Yeah.
wow, that's pretty incredible.
Yeah, and so we teamed up with a business which is run by a person who used to design the A380 landing gear, so who is a genius in this area with lots and lots of experience. So this is not something that we pull out of a hat. We, again, with so many other things, we try to find the best person and get the best person to design us the best possible component.
Would that be Grove coming on board with you guys?
That was not Robbie, but Grove on board was part of, like, that discussion started 4 years ago. You know, there's no wheel for this airplane, so the other wheel the rating wasn't high enough, and then the next biggest wheel would be from a Dash 8, from a twin turboprop commuter airplane, where one hub is like 37 grand. And then I started talking to Robbie and said, can you make us a wheel? Yes, I can, but I can't because I need to run employees. So the short version was, what if we run your employees and you make us a wheel? Would that be nice? And he was looking for a retirement deal anyway, and that's how that deal came about.
So I know you guys build a majority of your parts for your airplanes here. What are you doing as far as like what you call the fire control gate? Are you designing that in-house?
That's right, yeah.
That's going to be a lot of design on its own, I would think.
That is a lot of design, but then all the other gates that are out there today are on restricted category airplanes. The GB2 is aiming at a standard category.
Oh, you're not going to be a
certification.
restricted category?
No.
I mean, there's never been an AG airplane that's not restricted category.
That's right.
Okay.
So, and part of this is if we want to break into California, Cal Fire, for example, they traditionally use multi-engine airplanes just to not operate a single-engine airplane in restricted category or overpopulated area. So the FRRs tell you you're not supposed to do this, but then they also don't like it really. It's more a traditional thing from people who grew up with round engines that fail every 10 minutes. With turbines, it's not so much of an issue, but if we go through a standard certification and can say, hey, we've done all this testing that is the same as in a King Air, in a Kodiak, whatever you name it, the reliability is 10 by -9, whatever, then we hope we can slowly get into that market. And the other reason is, you know, the airplane will, as a within standard category, will be certified for IFR. So flight level 250, you all of a sudden you get into 230 plus cruise speed. Your fuel burn goes down considerably, and then if people want to ferry airplanes to Europe, to South America, to Australia, they can just load up and go.
A question with the fire gate, does that have like an automatic trim control too? Because I'm thinking if you're going from 19,000 pounds to 6,000 pounds, it's a big trimming difference, right? And you guys have been really fast.
Hopefully not so much of a trimming difference. So the whole how that design started was really the tank and the CG location within the tank. So essentially when you don't change your CG during the drop, then that pitch up moment is not as much. And it's also where the tail is located in relation to the drop. So I flew some other airplanes and had a look at this, what it could be. And so the GB2 is specifically designed to minimize that effect.
Okay. Philip went on to tell me how easy composite repairs are in the field, which reduce aircraft downtime and expensive maintenance. It's a win for the pilot, the mechanics, the operator, and the insurance companies.
We started this business 2016. We moved into this facility. Originally, it was about a third of what it is today. And now we are in the process of designing the next expansion that's going to enable us to hire enough people to make 2 of these airplanes per week. That's the goal, to get to 100 production capacity per year.
Combined GB1, GB2?
No, just GB2.
Oh, just GB2, wow. They're doing something right here at Game Aerospace. They have a lower turnover, which leads to a better skilled workforce.
Some of the first employees that I hired 9 years ago, they are now here for 9 years. And our team leads now, some of those guys, for them it was the first job out of high school. Now their team leads get paid well, so they have no reason to leave. And we rely very, very heavily on that experience. And it's essentially, when you look at the spar, the wings, the fuselage skin, everything is kind of systematically dragged over from the GB1 into the GB2. It's just getting larger. But we also took the opportunity to identify ways where we can simplify design to like make the production easier and faster and cheaper therefore, and more economical. And so now with over 100 GB1s being built, we took all this experience into the GB2 structure design.
Philip told me they currently have about 100 employees, but to reach the goal of 2 GB2s a week, they'll need 450 employees. That's huge growth.
That's mainly thanks to my business partner Stuart, who enables us to do this. One of our board members classified him as patient capital, so we can really do things right. We don't have to do them quick. We try to do them quick, but that's why, for example, we don't have a first flight date for the GB2. We try our best, but we're going to fly the airplane when it's done and not before. And so we're not going to draw some arbitrary line in the sand and then panic and fall over ourselves to make that happen and make mistakes in the process, because this just needs to work.
Very good.
And at the end of the day, this old saying, we never have time to do it right, but we always have time to do it twice. That's the kind of thing I'm trying to avoid here.
Do you have an estimated retail price for the airplane at this point?
Yeah, about 5 million, yeah.
Okay. And what about hourly operational costs?
It'll be less than what's out there today.
Okay.
And simply because the airframe will need a lot less maintenance, and the engine will hopefully need a lot less maintenance because of the better filtration system that we're going to install. A couple of things that we work on together with Garmin partially is to just better monitoring and overall make this a little bit more plannable for an operator. One of the first things that Stuart and I agreed on is that we need to prove this old thing wrong, that you need a large fortune to make a small fortune in aviation. Yeah. And we started making money 4 years ago in the meantime. That's when the game's
already profitable.
Yeah, and I mean now we're feeding a black hole with the GB2, but there is a plan behind it, so we make this money back. And I would not have dared to ask Stuart for more money if we would not have been cash flow positive. Having Stuart as a business partner is probably the biggest advantage that I have. We have the experience and we have the money, and as long as we get along with each other, this is very hard to get wrong, let's call it like this. And so for me, it's my job changed from just making something work to prove that I'm worth the investment, into I need to keep the wheels on the bus and make this grow in a sensible way. And Stuart is like, despite with million miles to spare, the best business partner they ever had. So like I said earlier on, I got self-employed when I was 24, and I went through quite a lot of people. For most of them, aviation was kind of a dream without actually realizing how much work is in the background. And so that's why I went through a few people, which is probably also because I'm not always a particularly nice person, but I'm typically very goal-oriented, and that's what makes Stuart outstanding. He's very rational, and when we look at a plan and say, okay, that makes sense, and we can just do it.
When we come back, we're going to find out what it's like to burn holes in the sky in this Gamebird 1. Can you tell me a little bit about the Gamebird, like, specifications, performance here? What kind of engine's on the front of this thing?
Sure, this has a Lycoming AEIO 580. A is aerobatic, E is engine, I is injected, and opposed. So it's a 6-cylinder opposed engine from Lycoming.
Okay, gotcha. And what's the TBO on that motor?
Very reliable. It's a 1600.
Okay, very
this
good.
application.
And how many horsepower did you say?
306.
And in front of that engine, there's a prop. What kind of prop do we have on here?
That's an MT propeller made in Germany.
Yeah.
The 4-blade, it's limited to 2600 RPM for noise.
Okay.
So we're a little more friendly in the neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And is that all composite propeller?
It's a wood core and composite on the outside and a nickel leading edge.
I see it's a 4-blade prop. What length is that prop?
So it's a smaller diameter for the noise.
Yeah.
And the 4 blades are very wide, so it absorbs the power really well.
Okay.
And it gives us more ground clearance to keep the rocks from damaging the propeller.
Inside of the cockpit, what kind of avionics packages can we get, and what's the difference in the front and the back cockpit?
So each cockpit has a 10-inch Garmin G3X Touch. That's standard. And Garmin comm radio and a transponder with ADS-B in and out.
Okay.
Integrated into the Garmin is also an engine monitor that displays in both cockpits.
Can I get an autopilot on this airplane?
Has an autopilot availability, a GFC 500. It's also a Garmin product.
Okay. And the original airplanes did not have the autopilot, correct?
That's correct.
And that changes.
Yeah, serial number 50.
50, okay.
And on, has the structure in the wing and the fuselage to mount the servos.
Did you see anybody trading their old Game Bird in on a new one for an autopilot?
There's one sitting right over there right now.
Yeah, I thought you might.
Yeah, that's nice.
One of the things I think is really interesting about the Game Bird, it can be a one place or a two place. Can you talk about that?
Sure, so the option is for a single place canopy. It takes two people 6-8 minutes to swap the windshield out and remove this canopy, and then just put the front cockpit cover on, and then slide the single seat canopy on.
Cool. And I'll have to say, with the single piece canopy on, it is one of the coolest looking airplanes out there.
Yeah, it's neat. When you're flying it, you feel like more like you're aiming it than flying it because the nose is so long.
Yeah. Can I carry stuff when I go travel in this?
Yeah, so it's unique in the category. It has a really substantial, actually, baggage compartment that we access from the exterior. So this is the first all carbon fiber monocoque fuselage certified in the US, and to have that baggage is very significant in that certification.
How many pounds of luggage can I put in here?
33.
Well, that's enough for like a long weekend with a friend.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the tail is narrow in the category, but it's built that way so it's easier to ship.
Okay.
It's a very wide chord though, so you get the controllability that you'd like to have and the pitch rate because it's so wide.
So you thought about shipping when you designed the tail?
Yeah, so these airplanes frequently are shipped around the country, or around the world rather, for air shows and aerobatic contests. And that's a big challenge with a lot of the aircraft. The four of us could get the wings off this airplane in an hour and a half and have it ready to roll in a container 30 minutes later.
You are shipping a standard 40-foot container?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's a two-piece wing. The box spar indexes into the other side and goes completely through the fuselage. There's two very large pins that index it into the fuselage to make it secure. At 20 Gs, it deflects 3 inches and does not distort.
Oh.
So it's certified to plus or minus 10.
Okay.
It's very, very strong.
But tested to 20 Gs?
Correct.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah.
I don't think you could survive that, could you?
No, sir.
Okay. Other unique things about the airplane, you have a camera on the main gear.
Yeah, so it's a taxi camera as standard. So in the back cockpit, when you're taxiing, you can turn it, you can select video, and it displays a really wide angle camera so that if the taxiway's on your own, you can't S-turn. It just helps increase your SA.
That would make me feel a lot safer.
Yeah, that's great.
What will this airplane cruise at?
So above 6,500 MSL at 24 square, it does 202 true
Oh, wow.
on about 16.5 gallons an hour. It's
That's really
efficient.
good performance. It's a real cross-country machine.
It really is.
Wow.
It's made to be flown well, very easy.
Okay.
And so a lot of aerobatic airplanes are twitchy. This airplane, because the way the pitch and roll forces are, it's easier to fly it better.
Okay.
And it was designed that way.
Okay. If the airplane's so durable, are the early models still flying, Chad?
Yeah, in fact, this is serial number 1.
Oh, wow, it looks brand new.
Yeah, it's never been repainted. It's original. It's got 2,200 hours on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty impressive. And
Yeah.
it looks like a brand new airplane. Like touch-up paint at least, though, right?
No touch-up paint that I know
Oh,
of.
you've been the nicest looking leading edge I've ever seen on an airplane.
So we've spoken a lot about the airplane. Maybe you'd like to go for a ride.
Yeah, I'd love to go for a ride. And this airplane here?
Well, this is Phillips.
Okay.
So we'll go with the demonstrator back here.
Oh, the one's pointing like Rip Slinger?
Yes.
That sounds cool to
We'll
me.
take Rip Slinger.
It was time to get on a parachute and climb into the GB1 and see what this aerobatic plane could do.
This thing does like 480 degrees per second roll rate, is that right?
Yeah, we're not, I mean,
No, I don't want you to do that. You don't need to show me that. Okay.
Philip, the designer, was going to make sure I got the full flight experience. Chad took the cameraman up in the second Game Bird.
Been real traffic, Game Bird Flight 2's rolling on 36. And Benville traffic, 8 going downwind, runway 33.
Traffic, 6 o'clock, same altitude, less than 1 mile.
Benville traffic, Skykeep 40 Mike Charlie, taxi southbound on Alpha to 36, Benville. traffic, Camber 476 Golf Charlie, holding short of 36, traffic.
Philip, about how far are we from the other aircraft?
Oh, like 15 feet.
Copy.
So I try to not overlap wings. The wingtips are basically in trail right now.
Yep. So is this like your typical cruise power setting, Philip?
So now we got reduced power setting. We're flying 2500 RPM and 24 inches.
Yep.
Which is basically Chad's way to give me some wiggle room. So if we do inside, outside, so right or left turns, you know, I have a bigger or a smaller radius as the wing plane.
Okay.
And so you need to have some spare power to make up for that.
What is your typical cruise power setting?
So if I go places and I want to get there, it's full power, full manifold pressure and 2500 RPM.
Okay.
And that gives me call. You want to go above them? Oh, I think let's go a little higher, so we got some wiggle room. Okay.
So, Philip, when you're flying aerobatics, is it full forward on the prop all the time?
No, actually not. I mean, the 2500 is kind of the golden number. The additional 100 RPM that this airplane can give you is really just static thrust in the first 30 knots of the takeoff roll.
Okay.
And above this, it makes absolutely no difference. I can demonstrate that in cruise. If you change the RPM from 25 to 26, there's absolutely zero change in airspeed. And these blades are optimized for this to minimize the noise footprint, and they're basically the best compromise between power and noise. And especially when you fly over the same area multiple times, then being sensible about the noise has kind of become good practice.
So when you were developing the GB1, did you work in coordination with MT to create a special prop for this?
No, that's a prop they already had, so we gave basically both the information for the airplane to both big companies that are out there today, and MT responded within 3 days with a detailed proposal, and Hartzell took their sweet time, like 2 years or something. So by the time the airplane flew, we didn't even get anything from Hartzell yet, so naturally we put the MT prop on. And I worked with these guys for 30 years in the meantime. I never really had a bad experience, and that's kind of a natural fit.
Yeah, they make a great prop. I've had it myself.
Alright, voila, you found this in your power box. Maybe take your power box in your right hand when we do this again.
Okay, yeah, we'll do.
Alright, we'll come back in and then do that next to you.
Traffic, 6 o'clock, same altitude, less than 1 mile.
Alright, we're done. We're going to come back in on your left wing. Here we go. Coming up again. And uno más, a bit closer.
Traffic, 6 o'clock, same altitude, less than 1 mile.
Any good? Awesome. Right on. So the sun is on the airplane. And I'm in right wing. Go here. Yep, I mean, we can dive. There we go. Here we come. Look to your left, look to your left. Alright, so I'm going to show you real quick before we head back is how this airplane flies when it's slow and when it stalls.
Okay.
Which is very different from what most other airplanes do, generally no matter which airplane.
So I would think in an aerobatic airplane you wouldn't want like benign like stall characteristics.
No, what you want a sudden stall and you want an equally sudden reattachment of the airflow, so you don't have a hysteresis between stall and reattachment of airflow.
Okay.
That's really the number one thing that you're looking for, and because you want to detach the airflow for a snap roll, but you want to hang back in and be controllable as soon as you possibly can again. So first we're going to do a power off stall, wings level, very boring. Show you what happens there. So it'll brake at 60. Here we go, 60.
Nice clean brake.
And this is it. You know, this is about as exciting as it gets. You see, and I can still work my ailerons. I can work the rudder.
Feels very
and
safe.
as soon as I unload the elevator, we're back in business.
Yep.
Okay, I got you. I'm right underneath you. Right turn is good. You can turn left again. So now we're going to do the same thing. Power on. So I'm going to let the airplane decelerate here and keep the nose like 20-30 degrees.
So it's more like an accelerated stall, correct?
No, that's not an accelerated stall. That's just going to be a power on stall. Okay. So here we're going to get into the stall, and I'm just adding power and put the stick all the way in my lap. So now we're flying around with 25 degrees deck angle.
Yep.
And I can fly turns like this. I can reverse the turns, no problem. And I can even abuse the controls, so I can do pretty bad side slips without the airplane departing, and then if you just relax the stick for a second, it flies again.
Wow, impressive.
So now, if we do an accelerated stall, what you mentioned, we're going to do a 60-degree bank here, 120 knots, and I'm just going to pull it through the stall into it. This was an accelerated stall.
Yep.
And this is as exciting as it gets. I got you. And then so the last thing I'm going to show you is that we're just going to do a slow speed loop here on your opposite heading, so just be mindful we're about to pull up here. Yeah. So 130, pulling up into a loop, and then on top of that loop I'm going to do a 4-point roll, where with the speed goes like at 40 or 50 knots. So here we get 50, here I'm going to do a 4-point roll, and I can still at 50 knots with an unloaded wing control the ailerons really well. So we're coming out with a little bit higher. Yep, I got you. All good. Okay, sweet. If you start to head back to base, then I'm going to be number 2.
We'll do a 360 here in the crosswind for you.
Thanks a lot.
Central traffic helicopter 0 Sierra Golf East Hangars be departing to the west after the game bird.
Morning.
Morning.
Traffic, 11 o'clock. High, less than 1 mile.
Flight 2 is down 1 being full stop, 36.
Traffic, 11 o'clock. Same altitude, less than 1 mile.
You
you always will land these, Philip?
That was a 3-pointer, just pick the tail back up.
So when I saw you come in on that test flight yesterday, you did that on purpose?
Yeah.
Okay. So why would you 3-point it and then pick the tail up after? Just give it authority again?
Clear. 3-6, thanks here, Bob.
Almost clear. To touch down at the lowest possible speed.
Okay.
And then you just have better rudder authority and you see where you're headed.
Okay.
And you have weight on the wheels, so if you land in a short runway and if you keep the tail wheel on the ground, you can't apply brakes for the first, call it 1,000 feet, because all you do is create black strips and burn through your wheels. Whereas if you pick the tail up, you kill all the lift and you have weight on the wheels and can immediately brake.
Okay.
I try to treat every landing as if it was an emergency landing, so carry too much energy, kill the excess of energy in short final, hit a spot, because then if you really need it, you're actually prepared, and if you always land in another way and you need to start to pull this out of a head from scratch, it's very likely to go wrong.
Okay.
It's been great seeing how Game Aerospace has created the GB1, a sports car in the air. Their next chapter is building a firefighting aircraft. With their unique design philosophy and take on aviation, it's going to be great to see what the next chapter represents. Join me next time on Built for Flight.